Hello, my name is Daniel Daly. Welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. Before we get into things, I just want to say thank you to all the fans out there who have been liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel. It's been awesome. I didn't expect that feedback, but just to get that support has been awesome. I'm going to continue to put out content, and hopefully, you guys like it. But yeah, it's just been awesome responding to fans, responding to people who are commenting, getting that feedback. That's important, good or bad. Messing up names, messing up accolades for Julius Randle and stuff like that. So just getting that feedback and getting that info is just like making me a little bit better each time. So hopefully I can continue to pump out content for you guys. And it's been awesome. I just want to say thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing to get that feedback and use the app and see all the comments, see who's a clown, see who actually knows basketball. Or actually sees the same line of thinking that I have and see the complete opposite of it. But whatever the case, just thank you. I just want to say thank you to all you guys. It's been awesome. But let's get into episode 21. And this one, I'll be going over the Battle of LA, looking at the Lakers offseason and seeing what they've been doing. Lebron's extension, Russell Westbrook pathways and what his options are, and seeing their overall roster and what I think they're going to be able to do this season, as well as looking at the Los Angeles Clippers in the same building for now. And just seeing probably the best roster they've had in franchise history. This is probably their best chance to make an impact in LA, and I think they have a chance to win the title. But just looking at their roster and what their outlook is and seeing how they can continue to get better. That's going to be episode 21, and stay tuned. All right, starting off, we're going to look at the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron signed an extension for $97.1 million with 2 years with a player option. That will take him into the 2025 NBA offseason with the Los Angeles Lakers. He has a player option at the end of that. This contract is going to take him until 40 with the Lakers, which is probably crazy and just speaks to how impactful he is, the longevity that he's had in the game, and the Los Angeles Lakers' commitment to him and his commitment to the Los Angeles Lakers for now. Just looking at their relationship that has been rocky, it looks like there's finally a commitment there. Like, hey, LeBron, you're committed to us for a couple more years, especially with Anthony Davis. I think he has a player option in the 2024-2025 season. So that's basically looking at Anthony Davis' extension. So they basically have, roughly 2 years, 3 years to bring a championship to LA, see what they can do. And I think that's a big signal to free agents as well, looking to come to LA. Looking at the 2023 free agency, I know there's been ties to Kyrie. There's also Chris Middleton, who has a player option to opt out. I don't know why he would leave the Bucks right now, especially playing with Giannis, but that is an option. James Harden, who knows what's going to happen in Philly. We've seen things fall off the tracks there in Philly before. We've seen James Harden move multiple teams before. You know what I mean? So, and get an opportunity to go to LA. He's usually out in LA anyway. So that is a possible with his player option. And also Andrew Wiggins is there. Basically the second best player on the finals team last year for the Golden State Warriors. Is he looking for a bigger role? There's also Jordan Poole, who's out there. I think he's a restricted free agent. So these are some ideas of the Lakers that they can look at. But yeah, having LeBron and Anthony Davis there for 2 to 3 more years might make a free agent or might make a player who forces a trade a little bit more comfortable saying, hey, I want to go to LA. Now that there's at least a little bit more stability there, at least for the next 2 years underneath this Laker regime here. So maybe that's an option there that they're exploring. And that brings me to the Russell Westbrook idea of 2 pathways here. Do they have to trade Russell Westbrook this season in order to salvage the season? Is this just a season where the Lakers can get back on track? See who can play, especially all the guys that they signed. I wrote it down here. Kendrick Nunn's returning. Dennis Schroeder, who they just signed from FIBA Basketball in Germany, who had a big time in Germany. They signed Thomas Bryant from the Wizards, I believe, Lonnie Walker from the Spurs, Juan Chisano Anderson, Troy Brown Jr. from Detroit. And just looking, those are basically just flyers basically underneath their cap circumstances right now. Those are just flyers on players, seeing who can even contribute or help possibly to this team right now. You're looking at they traded for Patrick Beverley, traded THT and Stanley Johnson for Patrick Beverley to up their perimeter defense, which is a big need for them. And those are just flyers trying to find some type of improvement over last year. They still have Austin Reeves on the roster, who had right spots for them last year. So the Lakers are basically just pulling out straws and saying, hey, can our stars, Russell Westbrook for now, LeBron James and Anthony Davis stay healthy, stay on the floor, be consistent there, and possibly have some type of positive trajectory over last season rather than last season, and see what they can continue going in forward. Looking at their pathway with Russell Westbrook, it's like they're trying to dangle these 2027, 2029 draft picks, and it's like, okay, I understand why they're protective of them, but if they're in win now mode, they should be trying to get rid of those picks and Russell Westbrook off the books here, unless Russell Westbrook can find some type of stability here and some improvement in this game. But looking at those picks, it's like, are those picks really as good as they say they are? And that's always been the thing with picks now, especially with Danny Ainge and his picks. Are those picks as valuable around the league? Those 27 and 29 picks, those are 5-7 years down the way. Are those picks going to be there where we think they are? Because the Lakers have no money on the books in 2025. Who's to say they can't sign free agents out there or basically reload this team? You are the Los Angeles Lakers. There seems to be a little bit more stability there than one of the days with Jim Buss was there. Jeannie Buss is taking over things. Rob Pelinka's over there. Even though there's still a little bit of friction there, that's the LeBron James era. But who's to say the LA can't bring some help in and be at least in the middle of the pack there? Those picks aren't going to be as valuable. Those picks are going to be in not out of the lottery potentially if they get some free agents in there and turn things around. Are those picks as good as they think they are? Especially dealing with the potential that they can get free agents there. Also looking at that, to me, it's just like there's free agents out there in 2025, 2026. I wrote it down here. In 2025, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, Jamal Murray, and Lonzo Ball. Those are potential free agents out there that the Lakers could sign. I mean, these guys, George and Leonard, are in LA. Jimmy Butler trains in LA. Drew Holiday, I don't know if he's just looking for a change of scenery and probably one more big contract. Ben Simmons, who knows what his deal is. Is he potentially a guy that he's always in LA? Mainly, let me say this. Most NBA players are in the LA in the offseason, so that's not a big deal. But to play there, be able to build connections out there a little bit more stable as a Los Angeles Laker does seem appealing to these guys. And in 2026, Steph Curry's a free agent. I know it's a long shot, but hey, we're going to pay Steph Curry, pair him with somebody else, and it's possible. Joel Embiid, Damian Lillard, Durant, Giannis, Zach LaVine, SGA, DeAndre Ayton, the long shot Jason Tatum, depending on what happens here in Boston, is a possibility. You know, he idolizes Kobe. It's not out of the realm that they can sit there and be like, hey, come save us. We'll pay you whatever the salary cap's going to be at that point, $500 million to come play with us. And you can be in the same building, the same jersey that Kobe wear. You know, so like there's possibilities out there that the Lakers could get better. So those 2027, 2029 draft picks, do they have to put those in the pairing with Russell Westbrook? Do they have to trade Russell Westbrook this year? Do they have the knowledge that Kyrie is going to come play for them next year? So there's some avenues there that are like, there's a lot of different directions the Lakers can go regarding Russell Westbrook, regarding these picks, regarding these trades. And quite honestly, looking at the trade targets they're trying to get, there's multiple team trade deals that people are coming up with. I think I saw Terry Rozier and Bogdan Bogdanovic coming to the Lakers in one trade. I got to look at that. But looking at these trade assets that they're trying to target, who's to say that, and for instance, the Indiana picks, the Indiana players with Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, that has been floating around for the past couple months. It's like, who's to say they can't get better deals for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner? Who says they have to trade them to the Lakers in order to get what they want? Like, Miles Turner can get possibly a draft pick, especially this season where teams need a big who can stretch the floor and block shots and be able to play defense a bit and rebound. Why wouldn't they look elsewhere and see, hey, can we get 2 first-round picks for this guy? And we don't have to take on a bad contract, or we can get a player that we're actually looking at. Same with Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield's making around, $20 million, $18 million, somewhere around there. Who's to say that, hey, there's shooters out there? Who's to say Dallas doesn't want a shooter, or Miami, or Brooklyn, or whoever? There can be better options out there that they can get better picks from, better package for these players in separate deals possibly, rather than conveying them to the Lakers and getting Russell Westbrook, who they're probably going to buy out, and a draft pick that's uncertain, that's 5-7 years away. It doesn't look promising in that regard there. And then also looking at Utah with Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Bogdan Bogdanovic. There's all these guys there that they can potentially get better deals for and better packages for, in assets and players that they possibly like to help their rebuild. So I don't see these Laker picks potentially saying 5-7 years down the road, with the Lakers potentially having all this cap space, most likely re-signing Anthony Davis in the 2025 offseason. LeBron's probably either going to re-sign or go to play with his son, or whatever the case may be. But who's to say these picks are as valuable as they say they are? And I just don't know. I don't think that's a gamble that other teams are willing to take and pay Russell Westbrook and, spread out his contract out teams usually do over the next couple of years. I don't see that benefiting a team right now. So for the Lakers, they're trying to make it seem like those options are there when they're really not. They're not set in stone there for the other teams. They're not it's not a makeshift deal like Danny Ainge trading Rudy Gobert, or even trading Donovan Mitchell, or the Spurs trading Javonte Murray. So it's like those picks that they keep they're trying to dangle. And it's like, if the push is now for the Los Angeles Lakers, trade those picks, because in 5-7 years, why are you concerned about that when you're the Lakers? You know what I mean? In that case, like, hey, let's try to trade these picks. Let's try to trade Russell Westbrook, and let's try to get better now. We're in win now mode. You can try to make a deal happen so you guys can be better this season and the next couple of seasons while you have LeBron and while Anthony Davis is probably going to have a bounce back season. Try to get as much as you can out of these guys for right now. And then if their contracts are up in 2025, you have free you have free cap space. Go sign people like you've done your whole franchise history. Go trade for a big time player. They traded for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think they made the trade for the pick for James Worthy the season prior. They've traded for Shaq. They drafted Kobe. When you really look at their franchise lineage, the only guys that were homegrown there has been Magic Johnson and has been Kobe Bryant, who they've brought in as rookies and really groomed to be legendary status players in the game. You've always taken stars from other teams. Wilt Chamberlain. I forgot Jerry West in that homegrown thing too. But Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq. You know what I mean? Like Pau Gasol. Like all these guys that you have brought in, you guys have taken from another place and brought to the lure of LA. Why is there such a hesitant to go all in and go win now? That's just my opinion on the matter. But that's what they should be doing. I don't see why they're sitting here like, oh, we're going to try to hold these picks and try to build a team. That you're not building a team that way. You're the Los Angeles Lakers. You had a can't miss with Magic Johnson at number one. You've had Kobe Bryant, who Jerry West pegged from Philadelphia, was like, yeah, we're going to take this kid and basically usher him into the Lakers. And Kobe Bryant was willing to do the work and willing to take on the challenge and be one of the best players of all time. You're not built that way. And when you tried to do it with Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Kuzma, you guys still went after LeBron. Why did you guys bring LeBron there? To win championships. So you're not going to sit there and try to hold your future and act like you're Cleveland or Miami when LeBron went to those stops where those are different media markets and stuff. You're LA. Act like you're an LA franchise. And I love clowning the Lakers and shitting on their fans and stuff like that. But it's like, you guys are the Los Angeles Lakers. You guys are supposed to be making power moves. That's what you have done your whole franchise history. And to sit here and be like, I don't know, I don't want to give up these 27 and 29 picks. I don't know if that's the right move, and be so hesitant. It's like, you guys are the Lakers. You guys are the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers, Sunshine City, Sunshine State, whatever it is. Sunshine State, I think that's Florida. But whatever the case may be, you're LA. Players are not selling to you guys. You guys are selling to players like, hey, come play for us. That should be your motto all the time. You guys should be trying to get the biggest free agents, the best players. And just to say that, like, just the opposite side as a Boston Celtics fan, we don't lure big free agents to Boston. Like, that doesn't happen in our franchise history. We're able to trade for KG because we had the assets. We were able to get Ray Allen because he was cool. We were able to get KG because we got Ray Allen, but we had the assets to get those guys. It wasn't like those guys were like, yeah, I'm signing in Boston. That's completely opposite what Boston has to do because of the weather, the location, the Eastern Conference. It's not sunny. Whatever the case may be, but it's like, these are just the total flip side where Boston has built their team through drafts, through small trades and free agency and like that. We don't get big free agents like that. But the Lakers' history, you guys are the Lakers. Go be the Lakers. Do what you need to do to win. That's what you guys have done all the time. And now you guys are being hesitant, trying to act like you're going to draft somebody, like you guys are going to do that plethora of it. And then, first of all, on top of that, you guys traded Ball, Ingram. You guys kept Kyle Kuzma, but traded him for, again, like you guys traded for Anthony Davis. You guys gave up all those picks. Randall, Ball, Ingram. And then you traded Kyle Kuzma and all these guys to get Russell Westbrook. So there's no difference there. Why is there a hesitation here? Go be the Lakers. That's my whole thing. Go be the Lakers. Do what you need to do. And as much as I hate the Lakers, to see this hesitance and uncertainty to act like you guys aren't the Lakers, go ahead, mess up. Go ahead, mess up. Matter of fact, go mess up. Don't catch the Celtics in championships. Go mess up. Go lose. That's what I need you guys to do. Go lose. Continue to be in mediocrity. Continue to be boring. Continue to be uncertainty. Continue to have chaos. And waste these LeBron years. Waste these Anthony Davis years where you guys need to win. Go ahead and waste them. That's all I'm going to say about that. But as for the Lakers, continuing, looking at Russell Westbrook, and he's one of my favorite players all time. I love his MVP season, just the heart he gave, and just not giving up, no quit, all go. That's been Russell Westbrook his whole career. That's my guy. I think the knee surgeries took away his shot a little bit, and that's why he's been disastrous in Houston, in Washington, and now LA. He's working with a shooting coach, working on a shot. There's videos on YouTube of him working on a shot. But that has been my guy since Oklahoma City, since he was a young boy, dunking, raw, athletic. And I can get into a whole Russell Westbrook spiel. Maybe I'll save that for another episode where I just basically speak on my fandom of Russell Westbrook and other guys like that. But looking at his relationship with Darvin Ham, it seems to be a different trajectory with the franchise. When Darvin Ham was introduced as the Lakers coach, he was basically talking about how Russ has to change on the defensive end and kind of worked with Russ to get better for this team. And I think Russell Westbrook was there at his press conference. They talked a lot. I think he respects Darvin Ham. I think there's an understanding between those two. Hey, we got to make this work. Regardless, and that seems to be the opposite of what the franchise wants to do with Russell Westbrook, where they're looking to trade him. Russ is once out. But it looks like there's a relationship there with him and Darvin Ham. But you look at all the point guards they have. They have Kendrick Nunn coming back after that knee injury. I think he banged his knee off a coffee table, and that messed up his knee. They just got Dennis Schroeder from FIBA basketball after his Germany for his second stint. And they have Patrick Beverley, who's basically they're thinking about playing the two guard or whatever the case may be. Cool, whatever. But having all those guards, it seems like you guys are having a safety blanket in place in case you guys trade Russell Westbrook. Not necessarily for a point guard, but necessarily for other position players on the wing and in the front court. And looking at that, it's just like, okay, cool, whatever. Russ is at this stage in his career where it's kind of like Allen Iverson, where he has to adapt or die. And Russell Westbrook has been my guy, again, since OKC. So it's like, it's tough to see him in this position, even in LA, even though I want the Lakers to stink, and they did last season. I want Russ to do good. That's my guy. I'm a Russell Westbrook fan, but looking at what this team could be if he's able to buy in, if he's able to play more off ball, he has never done that in his career. Let's just get that straight. He has never done that in his career, probably early days of OKC, and especially with James Harden as the primary ball handler there in OKC as the sixth man late in games. But that's not his game. He's never been that type of guy. So sitting here looking at that situation is tough, but I want Russ to do good. What the Lakers' impact this season I think they could have, I don't know. I've said in the past, especially last season, I was like, the only way the Lakers are going to be good is if they do it on the defensive end. The only problem is the Lakers traded all their defensive players for shooting and all these other guys that just didn't work, didn't mesh. Melo, I can't even think of the guys they had on their roster last year, but they traded all their defense. They got rid of Kyle Kuzma and KCP to Washington. And not to say that Kyle Kuzma was a defensive player. He was another scorer, another young guy you can kind of develop in your system, and they traded him like all the other guys. So KCP was gone. Rondo was gone. All these other guys that played defense and were playmakers and shooters and stuff like that. You guys basically built on the defensive end. All those guys were gone. That's why the Lakers were horseshit on top of all their guys being injured last season. The only way I can see this happening is if Anthony Davis is healthy and has a monster season and just is aggressive and really leading the charge and playing off LeBron and Russ. Russ has to be a better defender. LeBron is going to be whatever it is Anthony Davis is on defense, because that 2020 season, we saw LeBron's defense come back all of a sudden. And that's basically what it's going to be. If Anthony Davis is playing at a high level for the Los Angeles Lakers, I can see them just making it out of the play-in, all good things happening. But looking at it, people are saying this team's going to be a 9th seed, which is possible. The Lakers' range for me is middle of the road in the Western Conference to play-in team. That's what it is. That's my expectations for them. Middle of the road, best potential, because I don't think they're going to be better than the Warriors. They're not going to be better than the Grizzlies. They're not going to be better than the Nuggets. They're not going to be they're not going to be better than the Clippers or people I'll talk about in the next video, the next segment of this. They're not going to be better than those teams. So at worst case, they're looking at 5 or 6. And if they can get out just above 7, that's the best case scenario for them. They give themselves a puncher's chance in any series, of course, with LeBron and Anthony Davis playing at a high level. And it's depending on what that court is, if Russell Westbrook is going to adjust. Is he going to still be on the roster? Are those pieces that they're bringing in going to make a difference? So the Lakers definitely have to figure out what they're doing with Russell Westbrook and those draft picks if they're going to make a serious effort to compete now, or they're going to be at the bottom of the play-in, and that's not where LeBron James is. That's not where the league wants him. That's not where the league wants the Lakers. They're a big media market, historical franchise, and to have all these names on your roster and still be at the bottom, that's not a good look. So we'll see how it plays out for the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, moving to the other team in LA in the same building as Staples Centers for now. The Los Angeles Clippers. After being bounced out in the playing game last year by the Minnesota Timberwolves, that was the Patrick Beverley revenge game, as I like to call it, the Beverly Cup. Looking at their offseason, what they're bringing in here, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George healthy for once. Coming into the season, Kawhi looks great. I saw a picture there with his legs, his quads. I'm like, is he going to play center this year? But no, just having those guys back healthy, those are the 2 wing guys that they brought in 3 years ago, to battle and compete for championships. And so far, they have only gotten to, the second round? I believe last year they got to, not last year, 2 seasons ago, they got to the Western Conference Finals, upsetting the Jazz, and dropping in 6 to the Phoenix Suns without Kawhi Leonard. Looking at that, just having those 2 guys healthy, those 2 guys are two of my favorite players in the league. Paul George since Indiana. I love his game. It had that unfortunate injury that sent him back, and then he was an MVP candidate in 2018 with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And just looking at those 2 guys, their versatility, the ability to score, play, make, and play defense, especially on the defensive end. I always thought the Clippers would be better on the defensive end, but with the injuries and load management like that always seemed to derail their team. And just to have those 2 guys, 2 of the best wings possibly in the league, back on their roster that has been I'll get into that, has been pretty stable without those guys and has been able to carry. To have those 2 guys back, you can't see them not being a contender this season. I think that's why a lot of teams are, a lot of analysts and NBA guys are high on them, just because it's like that team with Tyronn Lue as coach has just been resilient. And I think that's the one thing that team has been. You can look at their roster, and I'll get into that as well. But just looking at their roster and how resilient they are, even without those star guys, they have the ability to play well, be able to be consistent, especially on the defensive end, which I did not think of, especially when George and Kawhi Leonard are out of the lineup. And you look at some of their personnel, they have been able to be a top team in defense the past couple of years with those guys in and out of the lineup. Their offense takes a hit when those guys are gone, and that's what Kawhi and Paul George can bring to the table. But in their offseason, they extended Ivan Zubac to a 3-year, $33 million deal. They brought in John Wall, who was excursioned out to Houston and not really with the team there, and basically had an offseason kind of similar to Al Horford. Hopefully that can be the case for them. And John Wall coming there in a different stage of his career, understanding what he needs to do for this team and have an opportunity to win, different than when he was in Washington and different than certainly when he was in Houston. I think that's going to pay dividends to them. They extended Terrence Mann 2 years ago, and they brought back Nicholas Batum on a team-friendly deal for 2 years. But looking at their roster, they still got Reggie Jackson, who has been able to be assertive and be another scorer they can depend on, a guy that can run their offense and get mismatches, especially in this league, pick and roll and switches like that. Reggie Jackson has been able to revitalize his career, especially with the Clippers, who have given him a chance there. They have John Wall. They have Norman Powell, who broke his foot and only played 5 games with the Clippers last year. He's a capable 20-point scorer. And that's a big scoring boost for them, especially coming back, and he played with Kawhi in Toronto. To have him on the roster fully with a full off season underneath his belt and be ushered to start the season with the Clippers team, that's going to be crazy. They have Luke Kennard and Terrence Mann, Brandon Boston Jr., who could potentially be a guy that they can rely on again. He was a draft pick a couple seasons ago. I can't believe it's Marcus or Markeith, or Markeith is in Brooklyn now, whatever the case may be. One of the Morris twins, one of them. Robert Covington comes back, and he's been one of the better defensive players, not the last season, but he's had that reputation of being a good guy down there. And Ivan Zubac, who I mentioned, signed that extension. And Moses Brown, who I believe played in UCLA. The Celtics had him, and Celtics fans went crazy when we traded him to Dallas. He could potentially rise up again there as a backup big man for them. But over the past 3 years with the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard experiment, the record for those guys is 138 and 88 losses. That's a 61% winning percentage with this team. And Kawhi only played 109 of those games. So he's only played 48% of the games for the Los Angeles Clippers since he's been in a Clippers uniform. And there are still, 50 games above 500 without Kawhi Leonard? You know what I mean? So that to see that stability with the Clippers, first with Doc Rivers, who got ousted in the playoffs, of course, blowing a 3-1 lead, and then bringing in Tyronn Lue, who seems to have a better pulse on this team, the Clippers still won 61% of their games. So it's like, they just really need Kawhi to be healthy, Paul George to be healthy. Paul George has only played 133 of those games, and that's 58%. He played 31 games last year and had that elbow injury. That was a freak accident. He has injuries on his shoulders the past couple seasons. And the craziest thing enough, the Clippers are 59 and 21 with Paul George and Kawhi. That's 73% of their game. 73% winning percentage with those two guys only playing 80 games. Imagine if they had those guys consistently all the time. Basically, the Clippers need those guys to play in the ballpark between 65, 75 games. If they can get that from that duo together, the Clippers are going to be dangerous. Because you look at their stability, even without those guys, they were 8th in defense last year. I believe they were 8th in defense in 2021, the year before. And their offense took a hit. They were 24th in offense. But with those two guys who are capable of getting 20, 30 plus points a night, that's scary to add to that roster and have that stability and still be potentially even better defensively when you look at that team. That's the crazy thing about this. And when I looked at the Clippers, it was random, but I always had warning signs in the regular season. I was like, they're not holding teams under 100 points. And if this team's supposed to be, even though they were 8th, I'm like, this is a red flag that they let teams score and couldn't stop guys certain nights. But they were 8th in defense, which is crazy. But it's like, that was a red flag to me. Like, they couldn't stop anybody. But to look at all that, bring back Paul George, bring back Kawhi, hopefully healthy, hopefully ready to go for the season. You're just looking at John Wall, like if he can be even 75% what he was in Washington, a little bit better of a distributor, even though he had seasons when he had 10 assists, to basically be that possible missing piece for them. They've been looking for a playmaking guard. They had Rondo, but he was not that type of scorer. He's mainly just playmaking. But to have that potential dynamic between John Wall, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and the rest of the misfits on this team, the Clippers can be great. The Clippers can be great. Like, Kawhi has been ready. They were talking about bringing him back for the play-in last year. So he's been ready. And to have a full offseason to get healthy, Paul George to have a full offseason to get healthy, get right back on track, we're going to see probably the best roster the Clippers have ever had. The best chance the Clippers have ever had in their franchise history. Even more than the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan days. I thought those teams were overrated. I thought Chris Paul had to get every shot for each guy. They were often hurt. Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, freak accidents, and especially that one year when they faced the Blazers. I can't remember what year that was. I think it was 2014. I think it was 2014 that happened, where Chris Paul got his hand caught, and I think C.J. McCollum's jersey and broke his hand. Blake Griffin broke his kneecap right on cue. And I think this is their best roster they have ever had in franchise history. And to think the Clippers having this significant roster, having a significantly better roster than the Lakers in LA, having a team that can potentially be at the top of the Western Conference, that can basically potentially guard anybody with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. This is scary for the Clippers, the Los Angeles Clippers, who have been dog shit. Like my whole lifetime have been dog shit besides those. I think they made the playoffs in 94 or whatever the case may be. And I think 06 they had a chance to go to the Western Conference Finals. I think that was Sam Cassell and Elton Brand and those guys. But my whole life they have been dog shit. And especially they had Lob City those couple of years where they revitalized their franchise. But looking at this from a talent standpoint, looking at this from an impact standpoint, and Ty Lue as coach manning the ship, this can potentially be one of the best Clippers teams, one of the best teams in the league that could potentially win a championship. If they don't get to the Western Conference Finals, it's a failure. Of course, they want to win championships, but I'm saying for this team right now, to have all those guys back, they have to get to the Western Conference Finals, at least get to the Western Conference Finals. If they do not get to the Western Conference Finals, to me, it's a failure. Championship, they still have to contend with the Warriors. Maybe Memphis has a little bit more size and a little bit, their young guys are going to develop. And maybe they can provide a problem, especially with John Moran, of course, but I don't see the Nuggets giving them problems like they did in the past. The Nuggets, they should be able to handle the Nuggets. They should be able to handle LA. They should be able to handle Dallas now. That like Luka can't keep killing them. They have to be able to handle them, and I don't think the roster for Dallas is that strong. Portland's not going to be an issue. Kings are not going to be an issue. Like the Clippers should be looking at the Warriors like that's the team we got to beat. If everything goes right, that's the team we got to beat to get to the finals. And whoever's in the Eastern Conference, hopefully the Celtics, they have a good shot to win a championship. The Los Angeles Clippers, who have been dog shit my whole life, have a chance to win a championship. And if they can stay healthy, they have a real shot of getting there. And I really like their team. As I said, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, two of my favorite players in the league. Probably top 15 players in the league, wherever you want to rank Paul George on any given night. But, yeah, they should be great. Plain and simple, they should be great. The only thing that they need to do is just be healthy. And that's the case with a lot of teams. Would the Lakers have been better last year if they were healthy? Would the Bucks have gotten past the Celtics if they had Chris Middleton? Would Miami Heat be better if they had Kawhi Leonard Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero? There's all these questions of teams being great, being better than what they are, especially if it came to injury. And if the Clippers have been that case for the 3 years that Kawhi has been there, Paul George has been there, injuries have set this team back. And is this the year they're finally going to get over the hump and be healthy, be a top team in the league, be dogs in the league. The Clippers should be that. They have the personnel. They have two of the best players in the league. Go get it done. Like that. They're not a middle of the road team. They should be in the top 4 seeds of the Western Conference, and they should be in the Western Conference Finals. That's my expectations for them. They should not be lower than that. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, please play like 65 games this season. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking you guys to be Iron Man this season because that's just not the way the league works. You want to conserve your guys for the playoffs, and that's when they go on go. They gotta get this done this year. They gotta get to the Western Conference Finals at least. And if they do that, they have a chance to be in the finals. But of course, that depends on health, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that's just going to depend on health for them. But I really like their team. They should be able to be good, man. That's all I'm saying. They should be able to be good. All right. In my last segment, I'm going to get a little ranty here. LeBron James went to LA in 2018. After his finals runs in Cleveland, after his championship in 2016, went to LA. Cool, first season, whatever. Did they miss the playoffs? Yeah, they missed the playoffs his first season. Injury, whatever the case may be. He only played 55 games, whatever the case may be. Kawhi Leonard goes to Toronto, wins a championship, leaves Toronto. And he goes to the Los Angeles Clippers. He had a chance to join LeBron in LA and didn't. Went to the Clippers. Teamed up with Paul George in one of the biggest trades in NBA history for Gilgeous-Alexander. I think 7 draft picks or whatever the case may be for Paul George to get to LA to play with Kawhi Leonard and battle in LA and win championships. And we haven't gotten that. There was supposed to be a battle of LA. LeBron James holding on to whatever prestige crown as one of the best players in the league, and Kawhi Leonard had his New Balance commercial with the crown hanging from the keys in the car, driving around LA, basically saying, "This is my city now." And we have barely gotten a battle between these two teams. Yes, due to injury, whatever the case may be, but it has not been a battle. It's been a water fight. LeBron James has been, 4-10 versus the Clippers. The Clippers have won the last 7, and I think the last win LeBron had was just before the bubble, July 30th, that first game in the bubble, I think, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just before the bubble playoffs started. Kawhi played the first game of that, but the Clippers have won the last 7 games versus the Lakers. And that's without, they're 5-0. The Clippers are 5-0 without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in those games. 5-0. 5-0. 7-0 overall the past couple seasons. This is supposed to be the Battle of LA. All the shit talking and undertones in the series, the media playing it up, being in LA, and we haven't gotten it. This is supposed to be a rivalry in the Western Conference. I don't care what anybody's saying. That's the thing the game, I think, has been missing, and it's kind of been picking up a little bit the past couple of years, and especially what the league has done with the schedule. Like I've said in the past couple episodes, again, I think it was episode 18, where I talked about the NBA schedule. We have been waiting for this for 3 years. It's year 4 now. I want a battle between these two teams. I want these two LA teams to go at each other. I want these two LA teams to destroy each other. And I want these two LA teams to meet in the playoffs because that's how it should be. Mm-hmm. They have all the stars on their teams. They have the best players on their teams. Whether it's a 2-7 matchup, a 3-6 matchup, whatever it is in the playoffs, they got to make this happen. Both LA teams, the Lakers and the Clippers, that's all I'm asking this season. Can we get that in the playoffs? Can we get a rivalry in the playoffs? Can we get this battle of LA situated in the playoffs? Can we get that? That's all I'm asking, because these are two teams that have all the stars. And with the additions of the teams and these two teams and where they are and what pathways they're trying to make, obviously championship aspirations for both these teams that they have. You look at the matchups, John Wall, potentially, where he's at with his rehabilitation and where he's at career-wise, versus Russell Westbrook. two of the most athletic guards in NBA history. Old age now, still going at it. LeBron James battling Kawhi and Paul George, trying to keep those guys a bay off his throne, off his crown, or whatever the case may be, of LA. Anthony Davis has a chance to be a powerhouse. He's shown that he's been a powerhouse in New Orleans his first year in LA. Going up against that front line, he should be looking at that front line like barbecue chicken. Anthony Davis, please. And I hate the Lakers. But Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, I just want those two guys. I love their games. Especially Anthony Davis. I was calling him a top 5 player when he was in New Orleans, and I'm like, nobody's watching this guy, what he's doing on both ends of the court. To see where they are now, it's like, can you guys be good? Can you guys be good for the NBA? At some point, this rivalry that we've been asking for, been salivating over the past couple years, every year goes into the season like, hey, are these guys going to be good? And I'm salivating right now with the potential of this matchup. And it's like, can you guys please be healthy? 1, be healthy. 2, play good basketball. And 3, give us a playoff matchup, please. That's all I'm asking for in this short rant. That's all I want for the NBA. Just good basketball. Good, intense basketball between these two teams and potentially in the playoffs. That's all I'm asking in this short rant. There's not much here in this last segment. Like, that's all I want. I just want the Clippers and the Lakers to battle each other and have a battle of LA. That's it. I don't want to see Golden State. We already saw Golden State in that, man. In that, potentially, I want to see the Clippers and Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. But the battle of LA, can we get that? Plus, it would be nice if the Clippers beat the Lakers. That's all I want, really. I want to look at the Lakers and just clown them, their fan base, the West Coast Ballerina fan base. I just want to clown y'all. And I want this series, the Clippers, to finally do it. That's it. I don't want nothing else. I just want impact basketball. I just want a great rivalry between these two teams like we're supposed to be getting the past couple seasons, and we have not, due to injury to Kawhi Leonard, due to injury to Paul George, due to injury to LeBron James, due to injury to Anthony Davis. Can y'all stay healthy, please? Mm-hmm. That's all I want. That's it. That's it. The Battle of LA. That's all I want. It's a storyline I want in the NBA. That's it. That's it. No. Nothing more than that. I just want some consistency out of those two teams. That's it. And that will do it for episode 21 of the Basketball Soapbox. My next episode, I don't know what that's going to be. I might look at 2 other teams. The Las Vegas Aces just won the WNBA championship. Shout out to Angel Wilson. That's awesome. Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Becky Hammond coming in there as a first-year coach, getting that done. I might talk about that and what I've seen in that series there. NFL season has started. I don't know if I'm going to talk football. I used to be a big football fan. I might get into that a little bit again. Some people asked me to talk about it, so I'll see if I can get back into that. But yeah, more basketball come on the way. I'll talk about 2 more teams because I like doing these little 2 segments. It makes it a little bit easier to do the videos. I think that's where I'm going to wrap up here and get back to you guys next week with a new episode of the Basketball Soapbox. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time.